Hi, everybody. This is Mary Badger. I've been a board member and a volunteer with Schools for Children and Different Choices for a while. Very excited to have you all here today for one of our presentations, this one on how to get ready for success in college and figure out what you need to know to have a successful first year and transition from high school. So we're really excited. Everyone is here for that. We have an incredibly good panel today, really exciting group. I'm going to let Paul Stein, who's the Executive Director of Schools for Children, introduce everybody to you. But just a few little housekeeping issues for you. If you have questions, we'd like you to put the questions in the Q&A section and not the chat. I will monitor both, but it's probably faster if you put them in the question and answer. If you want to ask a question anonymously, feel free to email or message me directly, and I can ask for you. Sometimes I know it's hard to ask a question and not be anonymous. If you have any technical problems, feel free to send an email to support@differentchoices.org. Or if you can still access the Q&A, you can try that as well. And we'll see what we can do to solve the problem very quickly. And we're really excited. We're going to move quickly through this today. There's a lot to cover. So let me introduce Paul Stein. Paul Stein, Dr. Stein is the Executive Director of Schools for Children and has been our leader since 2017. He has he's involved in a lot of different projects, growing our many schools and programs, but I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that. He is a former superintendent and a principal, and he began his career as a math teacher, so he knows lots about life in high school. And let's get started. So let me introduce Paul.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you too for your board leadership, especially your leadership on this Different Choices project. Has been incredible. Well, welcome everyone to Schools for Children Different Choices Fair. This project, including activities and resources beyond today's fair, works to ensure that students learn how to access supports, whether in college or at work or in other post-high school experiences. This is so important given the loss of services many students find themselves having grown accustomed to while in high school. We know that finding them on your own can be overwhelming. However, Different Choices and our partners can help bring together resources and information that help students and their families make successful transitions. Visit us at differentchoices.org and let us know what you need to make the transition from high school to college and career easier, more hopeful, and something you can anticipate with comfort and confidence. I now want to introduce you to Leslie Thatcher, an educational consultant and founding director of college success at Perkins. She has years of experience helping students and their families chart out next steps with confidence through college counseling, high school planning, tutoring, career and interest exploration, and executive functioning coaching. Leslie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Stein, thank you so much, and Mari for hosting this and for allowing me to join this amazing panel to talk about college readiness and college success. I direct a program called College Success, so I think about this idea all the time. I am just thrilled to introduce some of our speakers today, and we want to dive right in. So we'll keep this part brief so you can get the benefit of their wisdom and understanding of the types of programs they offer to help you make informed choices as you support your child or as you go through the process of selecting a college. So without further ado, I want to let you know that today we have Bernadette Burke, who is the Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Hampshire College. We have Nicole Ford, who is a graduate of Dearborn Academy. We have Dr. Suzanne Jones, who is at the CUNY Leads Job Developer at Queensborough Community College. We have Dana Mann, who's a clinician at Dearborn Academy, Kristen McInerney, a senior admissions coordinator for Career Next programs, and Sarah Sempe, assistant director, admissions and recruitment at the University of Arizona's SALT program. A really rich and diverse group of professionals, and I can't wait to get started. A couple of contextual comments before we launch. It's not going to be long, I promise. As Dr. Stein acknowledged, that developing a plan for what to do next after high school can be exciting and buzzworthy, right? But it can also possibly feel overwhelming. And we know the common narrative about this next step is often idealized about being the best time of your life, and a lot of glory is attached to it. But we know often families find themselves searching for guidance about their unique situation. And that's why we're here today, is we have students who really deserve the time and the thought to have nuanced information and to make informed choices about the types of next steps, particularly when they're thinking about college. And this panel today really helps launch us into the beautiful range of opportunities that are out there for students to make that next step and to think about what might work best for them with their skills and their areas that they are needing perhaps some additional support or a ramp to success. So I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Landmark College, who was unable to join us today, but has really helped lead the way in articulating what some of these questions and answers are as we look at our students and the different ways that college can be possible for them. I know they've certainly informed my practice in the field for many, many years in providing tools and thoughts and programming that's unique, it's innovative, and it meets the needs of our students. I love that, and I want us to move into our Q&A. So what we're going to do is talk with our college representatives and representatives of other programs and learn about their programs. And I'm going to introduce them and ask them some leading questions to give them a chance to unpack what their programming is and hear what they mean when they talk about college readiness. What do they look for when they consider applicants for their particular programs? And as they consider match, because I really want you to think about that idea of match. A lot of the buzzy in social media is big top 10 colleges or selective colleges. And I just want to push back a little bit on that and think about the rich range of programs we're going to learn about today and how they might match the needs of your unique student. So without further ado, I am going to move and introduce Bernadette. Are you ready, Bernadette?
Yes, welcome. But actually, before you say anything further, Leslie, because I know you have a very specific question for me, I would just like to acknowledge to all of you that my son actually went to Landmark College for a year. And so I do want to give them a little bit of a shout out because they could not be here today. They have amazing programming. I encourage you to look into it for students who have executive functioning challenges, other challenges. They do really wonderful work. And I also have two friends that work there. So I do really have a fun place in my heart, even though I'm not part of the Landmark community. Officially, I feel I am an exterior member. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. Thank you for lifting them at Bernadette and giving that real testimonial. I think that the parent experience is powerful. And that's part of why we're here today, is to really almost testify to the range of our experiences. I neglected to mention, I've put forth students through college, through very, very unique and different circumstances myself. And so as we go onward here, thank you. And are you ready now?
Yes.
All right, let's bring it on. So it's a great question. So how does Hampshire College measure readiness when an applicant comes in, and how do you look for those signs of readiness in an applicant? And as you're thinking about that, once they're on campus, how do you help guide that student in possibly learning how, practicing how to seek out resources if they're beginning to struggle or feel overwhelmed. So it's sort of a 1-2 step. You ready?
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, so I think about this question a lot. One of the things that I start with mostly is a student's ability to self-advocate. Even if they're not sure where to go, their willingness and their desire to self-advocate is the first thing. Hampshire's programming is a lot different than many other schools, and it requires a level of independence in the sense of desiring to move forward, desiring to learn, and willingness to accept support. And while that sounds obvious, some students feel like they're supposed to know everything. And at Hampshire, because our model is so different in an academic sense, we really know that students need to be able to be willing to ask the questions, to be willing to say, I'm not sure where to go. And so with that, in addition, the ability to navigate the world in some way. So that goes hand in hand with that ability to ask questions, that desire to accept help. And so navigating campus, knowing that you might have to go to more than one office to get the answers, those kinds of things really show us that a student is ready to take on the level of independence that's required at Hampshire. And also, I think that they're willing to go to their advisor to ask support. Our advising system is much deeper than some schools. Some schools will offer a lot of advising. Others are more about telling you to sort of just check things off the list and move forward. But our advising is really there as a mentorship. Every faculty member and most staff members are advisors or play a secondary role in advising. And then in terms of applicants, what we look for in applicants are those who are challenging themselves academically and in the world. So students who want to learn something new, whether they are teaching themselves to play the flute. I know that sounds like a funny example, but it happened last year when I was reading an application. So even those students who are not taking formal classes, who are not doing things, within a pre-prescribed way. And that really speaks also to Hampshire's non-pre-prescribed academic model. So we look sort of the same thing in the applicants in the way they will do different things in the world, whether they're starting a club, joining something within their church or their community, if they are really interested in doing something in the world, that shows us they're ready to take on the Hampshire model, because we are beyond academics in our community. We really do want our students to bring their academics into the community. And then the last part is the resources on campus. How do students sort of move through that support system? And so we have several different areas, and when I'm done, I'll put some links in the chat for you to check out if you're interested. But we have our Office of Accessibility Resources and Supports, and that we call it OARS, and I like to think of it as, they're giving you that extra paddle to get up the river. I think it's sort of a neat acronym in that way. We also have a wellness center, which is our preventative services. How do you access self-care? How do you access that ability to think about where you want to take yourself? And then there are health and counseling services, as well as medical services on campus that allow you supports while you're either in crisis or just ongoing, if you're looking for those supports. We have a spiritual center that many of our students do access. It is not singularly religious. It really is about spirituality, and then also helping you connect to your religion if that's something that helps ground you. And then we have a lot of identity support services within our community advocacy. And while some people don't actually think of that as resources that students with needs or challenges or learning differences have, the idea really is often people come with anxiety, and anxiety can be based in their identity in the world. So we really do like to include that community advocacy in our supports. And then I would like to just sort of end by saying that Hampshire welcomes many students, and we are a little bit broad in our acceptance of students. We have unofficially approximately 75% of our students who acknowledge that they have either an acute mental health illness like anxiety, which really gets in the way, or those who have some learning challenges. And so we really want to remember that although that is not our main focus, we do have a collective community of many individuals who come from different backgrounds. And because of Hampshire's different academic model, we have a large group coming from homeschooling, unschooling, especially due to anxiety issues within school. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Leslie.
Awesome. So, wow, Bernadette, that I jotted a couple notes as you were talking as we think about creating a successful transition to college. And the word match just kept leaping up, that your school is very clear in describing who they are, who they serve. And as parents consider and students consider a possible college, you've made it very clear for them to reflect, is this a good match for me and my academic intellectual interests, my possible future plans, and my needs in the present. And you made that so clear. Thank you so much.
And if I can just say one last thing, Leslie, I encourage students to see as many college campuses as possible. See small ones, see large ones, see one or two that you think you don't want to go to. It helps you fall in love with the place that's the right match.
I couldn't agree more. And it's part of it gives us a chance to help our adolescents figure out what feels right. It's difficult to know, especially for our students who are coming out of the last 2.5 years that have really jumbled what might have been a time of exploration on their own terms, has possibly really limited their ability to get out and explore new settings, new environments, and try them on for size and how they help inform who they are and what resonates with them. It's difficult to know what you want if you've never experienced it before. And this panel really does bring a broad range of types of colleges for us to reflect on today, which I just love. Colleges and post-secondary options that include college. And for that, I want to transition to Dr. Jones. There are so many marvelous options out there, and I'm a massive fan of community colleges. And I'd love to invite her on here, and I have some questions for you. You ready to go?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Jones.
And I am joining you from a fun event for our students. So if you hear any noise, it's because we're doing everything out here in New York for our students to make sure they have as much support as they possibly need. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here today. Thank you for carving out the time for this important panel. My question to you, there's a million questions I have, but I'm going to focus on the one we identified. So how does Queensborough and community colleges in general, how do they differ from and are similar in enrolling and supporting neurodivergent students? Again, some folks have had a lot of exposure to the extraordinary resources you all bring to this conversation. So tell us your thoughts on that.
Such a great question. And one of the things that I have worked at different colleges, and when I got to the community college level, I said, wow. I sat on the Obama committee where they dealt with the college melt in community colleges and the encouragement, they wanted to encourage students to go back to community colleges. And when I got here, I said, I could not believe the support that they had. So one of the first things that I noticed that they had was that once you declare that you have a disability, you have one place that you go, and they are responsible for everything. You're not all over the college. You're in one place. Somebody's going to advise you. Somebody is going to do your registration for you. Somebody's going to set up the software that you may need. Somebody's going to set up note taking for you. All the different programs now that we are actually on a system where we are still online. Now they will set up someone to, if you are blind, they're going to set up programs for you. They're going to set up someone to take your notes. All the software, they arrange every single thing for you. And what they begin to do early is that they have what you call a pre-registration, like you have access to priority registration. So you get to register before any other student in the college. You also get academic skills coaching, that if you are not up to par, they are going to provide you with the support that you need to strengthen your skills even before the classes start. And it's interesting because people hear about, okay, this professor is this way. I teach also, I hear I'm this way. We find the best professors based on the reviews for our students.
Oh.
We make sure that, this one deals, or this one is this way, or this one is that way. We find the best matches for our student. And I just think it's just so wonderful that they have all of this support. If you can't go to the registrar, we're walking you there. If you can't go to admissions, we're walking you there. We find there's always someone on staff to help our students. And we have a lab, an amazing lab that deals with only our students. Whether it's time and a half, it's whatever extra time it is, we have all the support for them. That we go to get the exams from the professors ourselves. We schedule the time, even if it's on the weekend. We do that, and we work extra hours, later hours, to make sure they have all the support. And I've never seen that in a college setting, to be honest with you. I've never seen that. We also have what you call like an online, a leads online, where once a month, we bring to an online platform subjects regarding work, employment, what challenges you may be having. And that really helps them to stay focused. In the summertime, this summer, I had 2 6-week programs where they were paid, and it was only for my students with disabilities. And now that we're going into the fall, I have 10 hours of paid internship if they're interested. So there's so much support for them. And I just think it's an amazing thing that we're all here to offer our students the best choices that's out there.
That sounds extraordinary, Dr. Jones. And I wonder, that transition from the K-12 system, I know there was a panel on accommodations, but that leap into a community college for these young people who are learning and beginning to practice that self-advocacy and that self-description, as they integrate different pieces of their identity, possibly on their own for the first time. Community colleges are a unique place in that they're looking, their mission is to create a successful transition in a way that some other colleges may be slightly less designed to support that transition. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, it is accurate. What I have done since I got to Queensborough is that I go to the high schools now. Every month I'm at the high school. I have become the familiar face at the high school, whether it's a Zoom call or a face-to-face. I'm going out now more, and I am the link. We're the link that's, hey, do you want to tour this weekend? Do you want to see what it's like to be in a college setting and just watch a basketball game or something? And it doesn't have to be academics, but just for them to get a feel of the environment. And that really, really works. And we make sure that we have 3 clubs in the college that's geared for our students, and they can come at any time. It's no pressure. We watch movies. We celebrate. Tomorrow is LGBT Day in the city. They get to march. They become a part of a community very early, and so they have the sense of a belonging, and they get to buy in early, which is really a lot of times what it is. It's them buying in what we have to offer.
Well, and I love your descriptions are so vivid and detailed, and it really speaks again, going back to that idea of match. It really does help us help our families understand that there are many kinds of colleges out there and environments, and this may be a good match for some of our students. And I so appreciate that. Well, I'm certain have some questions coming to you about community colleges when we open up the Q&A. I'm going to move on to Sarah from University of Arizona. Are you out there?
Hi. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's a great segue into a marvelous comparison to a community college is a large state college, and yours has really marvelous and unique programming there. So let's get right started. So can you talk to us about how a campus-based academic support and college prep program like the SALT Center might be valuable in terms of an alternative or a complementary resource for students enrolled in the mainstream college experience? And there's a lot of layers there that I hope you'll unpack, but take it away, Sarah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. My apologies for my voice. I'm just getting over COVID, so I am just a little nasally, but I'm really happy to be here to talk about the SALT Center. The SALT Center, for anyone that doesn't know, is an academic support program at the University of Arizona. We support students with learning and attention challenges. And we do that in a number of different ways. We have three tiers of service that we really work with students in. The first being our student support specialists. They are essentially the compass for the student during their time at the university. The University of Arizona, as you mentioned, is a big public university. We are a Research 1 university as well as a Pac-12 university, at least for the next year. And so we, have 40,000 plus students here. So there's lots of people. It's a definite big school environment. The SALT Center helps to make that environment smaller. And definitely, as Dr. Jones was saying, speaking to community, we definitely have a space for students so that it doesn't feel so big. So as I mentioned, the support specialist, every student is assigned to their unique support specialist. We have about 15 on our staff. They work with about 50 students. So our program enrolls about 650 to 700 students each semester. Our support specialists, as I said, are their compass. So we really help students to navigate through their undergraduate journey here at the university. So, we help them with strategies, executive functioning, those things that get them from day to day, week to week, semester to semester. But it's all dependent on the student, and we meet them where they're at. So we do know that there's going to be students that come in and are completely ready to do every single suggestion that we make, to, go to tutoring 5 times a week, all of those different things. But then there's students that aren't, I think someone mentioned buy-in, right? Part of that buy-in is understanding, their responsibility and being accountable to, engaging with the programs. We always tell students, as long as you show up, we will be here to support you. In addition to our support specialists, we do also offer tutoring. Students can get tutoring one-on-one, in drop-in labs, as well as in group reviews. And then we also have educational technology within our space and resources, especially a coordinator who can help students to implement technology that might assist them throughout their time here at the university. We do, yes. Did you? I feel like.
Got it. And then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. I do have one.
One last thing I wanted to mention was that we do also offer psychological services. We understand that that is an important part of, students' well-being. They're a whole person, not just what their academics are. And so all of the services that I mentioned are actually in-house. So the building behind me in my picture here is the SALT Center.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I know some programs have separate application processes separate from applying to the college. And I won't go into all the other programs we just talked about, but let's just talk about University of Arizona so our families understand Some colleges, it's sort of just there and students can take advantage of support services or tutoring or so on. But the SALT program is a little different, and some programs are structured that way so families know questions to ask. How would you
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are an application-based program, and one of the reasons we are an application-based program is really to help with match. We want to make sure that the support services that we have do meet the needs of our students. We are a fee-for-service program, so we just want to make sure that students are supported. And so we do have an application. The student does first have to apply to the University of Arizona. They don't have to have received their acceptance before they apply to the SALT Center. However, they're not reviewed for admission unless they're accepted into the university. And the very simple reason for that is we just work with University of Arizona students. And that application process can take, you know, as far as the review, about 3 to 4 weeks. So it's always really good, especially if there's programs that have applications, to apply early, so that you aren't, you know, the SALT Center, for example, typically reaches our enrollment limit by April, which is before the May 1st, you know, commit deadline. So if you are interested in the SALT Center, or any center really, there's great programs across the country. Just make sure that you understand if there's an application and to fill that out.
Great. And for families, I don't let that be overwhelming to you.
Yeah.
Find the information online. These centers and these colleges are really work hard to make sure the information is accessible and can support you in identifying timelines and such. So take a deep breath.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully we will get some questions from our families as we go into the Q&A. I'm going to move on to Sarah. No, I'm going to move on to Kristen. You're Sarah. And explore a really wonderful program at some SUNY schools. She is, can you tell us how Career Next, which is the program you're going to be talking about today, Kristen, which is at SUNY Cobskill, Schenectady, and Hudson Valley Community College, and how that program, Career Next, bridges the gap in communication and responsibilities, that big, huge jump between high school and college. It's a unique shift, and many families and students are really unaware of how the playing field changes a lot. So how would you address that, and how does Career Next help that?
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. So basically, you know, to kind of answer that question, kind of give an overview of our program. So we are over at SUNY Cobleskill, SUNY Schenectady, and Hudson Valley Community College. And basically what our program does is we are also a fee-for-service academic support and executive functioning based program. So basically what that means for us is on each campus, we have what we call our workroom, very similar kind of vibe to a resource room in a high school. Students get scheduled time in there with the academic coordinator, you know, to work on really all the kind of different things that they might need some supports on. You know, you guys probably talked a lot today about college accommodations, you know, what carries over, what doesn't carry over. And that's a big piece of our program, is kind of carrying over some of those supports. And like Leslie said, kind of bridging that gap that, you know, doesn't carry over to college typically. You know, basically why our program was created was for that reason. We saw a lot of students who were kind of going more towards the life skill route, but they could get their college degree, but they still needed those supports. So that's kind of why we were created. We also noticed, you know, especially with COVID recently, we've noticed a big shift in kind of what parents are aware of changing at the college level and what doesn't change, what does change. So that was another reason that we kind of came about with this program. So kind of to help out with all of those changes, what our program does to kind of help with that is bridge the gap in communication. And what I mean by that is, you know, in high school, a lot of the communication goes directly to the parents. The communication sometimes with the students, but mainly those kind of big decisions and things like that, it all goes to the parents. At college, that switches over, and kind of that communication aspect is where a lot of our students struggle with those things. Self-advocacy is always the goal with them, and that's what we work with them in the program, but we need, you know, they might need a little bit of help in the meantime. So we kind of bridge that gap by being that line of communication. So working directly with advisors, you know, when the student goes to schedule their classes for the next semester, we go with them, you know, to kind of be that voice and help them, you know, advocate for themselves. We also will go with them If they have to meet with a professor, office hours, and maybe they're struggling a little bit with that, we push them to lead the conversation, but we go with them to make sure that they're going, but also just having that support that they might need in those kinds of things. And then just also being a line of communication with the parents. A lot of our students, like I said, that communication, relaying messages about how classes are going and, where they're at and where they're struggling and where they're succeeding, it doesn't always get relayed to the parents. So we step in and kind of have our academic coordinators be that line of communication with the parents, so that that's not really lost. It can be scary, that big shift. There's so many things that change at the college level that don't change in high school. So we go through a lot of that in our application process too. So just like Sarah was saying, we're also a fee-for-service program, an additional application to what to the students applying to the school itself. And we go through all of this in the application process. We run through a student's IEP or their 504 and talk about like, okay, this will shift, this won't shift. Are you ready for this? Where might you need some supports, that kind of stuff. So that's a very broad overview, but a little bit about us.
What I love is that it's literally a bridge, and we know often with executive functioning and ADHD, it sometimes recognizing what those systems are is more challenging for our students, or even recognizing where that need may be arising, and having that bridge can really be a powerful tool to help them then begin to build their own structures and methods. So marvelous. Exactly. On that note, we have a marvelous transition to the perfect person to talk next, which is not a surprise, Dana. I'd love to bring you on up here and ask you, from the perspective of a high school clinician and someone who supports the transition process as a transition coordinator, when do students need to begin preparing for this transition and this shift that our speakers are really beginning to talk about, where that locus of control, legally is sort of technically designed to be in that student, whether they're ready or not. And there's a bunch of, there's some thinking that families and students can begin to do. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the good news is that you have been preparing for college for the past 4 years in high school. And I kind of like to remind students when we start talking about college that they've been preparing themselves. I think that, at Dearborn Academy, we also have a transitional program similar to, sounds like the SUNY program, but it's sort of separate, where we really try to help high school students and then early college students. Right in that sort of second semester of high school and summer before college time. I think that's really an important time where you're learning life skills. How often are you going to do laundry? Are there different ways that you want to take notes? Things like that might be on your mind as you're preparing yourself as a student or as a parent preparing your student. I think that, our Dearborn Academy transitional program, we work with students from that second semester all the way through their college transition, so all the way up till senior year, with the different things that are coming up, because as we know, there's different transitions within college itself. So the slide that's up on the screen right now, I'm not going to take the time because I know it's a limited time, but just for people to look over, you're really going through a lot right within that first semester of college time. And you can go on to the next slide. It's another list of just all of the things that college freshmen are going through. So our program really helps to kind of bridge that gap, where students who are coming into college that have an IEP, have a 504, have any sort of mental health things that are going on for them, feel really supported. I think that one of the really important skills that I've been hearing a lot as we go through this panel is self-advocacy. I think that is so important, and just really building that skill for your transition. And so if you go on to the next slide, we sort of have all different ways that we're supporting the student, because I like to think of it that they're all sort of interlapping at once as you're building your transition skills. So you have your college transition, you have education and mental health that are all going on at the same time. And so I think it's really important to be getting comfortable with having to ask for help. I think for high school students for a really long time, expect that our teachers have some sort of understanding about what's going on for us, how they're supporting us. And at the college level, they might not. So part of what our work with students is too, is sitting down, writing those emails to professors and reaching out to people on campus that are going to be helping us. It's a virtual program right now for students. And I think part of that is really helpful, that we can sit with you and be crafting that email and working on those skills as well. For students that are more in the Boston area, we often can go with them as they prepare to take their first T ride and things like that, if they're transitioning to being a commuter to campus. So those are really the areas that we touch on within our program.
Wow, Dana, what I love the slide that you have up there. It's a powerful one and can really help students and families begin to consider the different spheres of independence and self-awareness that a student needs to begin to enter. And I think it's, again, a marvelous segue to a real live student who can really reflect on her own experiences as she transitions in. Nicole, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Hi, I'm so glad you're here. It's perfect timing to have you up here. And you put a lot of thought into things that we can reflect on in this brief conversation. And hopefully it will open up some questions in the Q&A. So I'm going to launch right in. So one of the things that may be helpful for some of the families and students on this call is to reflect on how a diagnosis might affect your experience in school, and what would you comment on that? Because it's know thyself, right?
Yeah. So my diagnosis is PANDAS, which is pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with strep. Basically, it mimics OCD, anxiety, and depression, at least in my experience. And I ended up with school refusal, which is anxiety, like you have a mental blockade when it comes to school. And basically without Dearborn Academy, I don't think I could have gotten through like all the accommodations that they offer, where if you need anything, like you can take a walk away from class. There's always somebody to talk to, like all the staff are open to it. Extra time on tests and assignments, like it is game changing.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine. And it sounds like it gave you the opportunity to be yourself with the things that you were trying to figure out how to manage and strategize with, but it also gave you time to meet with success.
It did. It really did. I'm actually at a Massasoit Community College right now. And I plan to transfer to a four-year university and eventually med school from there, so I can help people with neurodivergent issues.
That's great. And one quick question before we dive into the Q&A, because that's next, but I think it may help families to understand, when you're at Massasoit now, are you doing that online or in person?
So I started out online because my social anxiety just wasn't where it needed to be. And then I worked on that and transitioned to in-person classes, which for accommodations, in-person is definitely better, but obviously, depending on your issues, online can be really beneficial to minimize that social aspect.
Wow. I love that you talk about that ramp on, that you created an on-ramp that was appropriate for you and your unique needs. And as that ties into this whole world of match, of developing a plan that works for your unique needs, and these colleges and programs that we've talked about today really provide a really broad range of different ways of doing that. Do they feel like they're representing sort of the different ways that you even thought about this? I bet.
Sorry, say that again.
I totally jumbled that commentary. That many of these different programs are offering a range of different needs that different students could really benefit from as they those next steps.
Yeah, the online has opened a whole new world, like for people with certain anxiety issues, that like being in person, I like, it's just great that they have the option, like which one works best for them.
It's just awesome. I love that story. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. I'm going to pause here, and hopefully folks can take advantage of our having Nicole here, but it is time to open it up to Q&A, and the team behind the scenes, Mari and I think is leading the Q&A. Are you out there, Mari?
Yes, I am. And I have one question that's come in that I did want to put out there, which was, it would be great to hear from Nicole and from the panelists a little bit about the social aspect of college. We've mostly focused on sort of academic and components, but for a lot of students, I guess the question here is, how do you navigate socially? You know, how do you make friends? How do you, when you have social anxiety, how do you kind of maneuver and make decisions even in college around social situations?
That's a great question. Nicole, are you out there? Let's see if, would you be able to comment on how that's evolved for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I've noticed that when you get into certain classes closer to your major, it's a lot easier to have conversations with people about that. So the general ed class is a little trickier. I did those online specifically because they were offered, and I always find it harder when not everybody's on the same page. But I've recently just got into a chemistry class. I was talking to other students in STEM and about like our goals for like the future, and it's a lot of similar. And I was so surprised that I just met 4 people with ADHD like me. Like we were just casually talking, and I'm like, how do we all have this? It's like really cool how in community college, I think a lot of people do struggle with like mental illness. So you'd be surprised how many people are out there that can relate to you.
Wow, that's really powerful. Just, I think a lot of our students probably hear from the adults in their life, it will get better after high school. But you're really telling a story that sort of validates that it is a different environment and world and context that may be very validating and exciting. That's terrific. Mari, are there
one more question, which is a little bit about, I guess this is really about parents and how parents' views of students change. So, you know, a parent who's been very involved in managing somebody's schedule and providing support, suddenly, you know, the student has moved on to a residential college experience, possibly. How does the parent adapt in this?
Wow, Mari, great question to the person who posted that. I want to ask both Dana from Dearborn and Sarah from the SALT Center, because I think they may have some particularly unique perspectives on that. Dana, you want to go first? Or Sarah, you're up first. You want to comment on that? I can imagine you hit that intersection. Oh, good. We've got you both on the screen here. That intersection of the role of the parent versus the role of the student, how something special called FERPA kicks in, and how that transition happens. So Sarah, you want to start in?
Absolutely. It is definitely a transition, and one that students have to be prepared for. One of the best ways to be prepared is to start thinking about what your learning or attention or whatever challenge it is that you face, being able to talk to someone else about your challenges and how, you know, what kinds of strategies and supports have worked in the past. In the university setting, it's literally just night and day. So you become an adult right when you get classes, and all of a sudden parents don't get to talk to anyone else. It's just you. So the best preparation is practice. So I think that's something that you could definitely start doing now.
That sounds like great advice. It may take some time to stretch and strengthen those muscles, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to necessarily be pretty at the beginning. But beginning to try that out and seeing what that experience is like can be so so helpful. Dana, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sarah. I think that for so many students, your parents and your caregivers have been your biggest advocate and have been there for you when no one else was, right? And have been able to talk to teachers in different ways to kind of get your needs met. So I definitely agree that I think reaching out to the different services that are going to be available to you at your college. So whether that's the disability services, the counseling center, a program that might be special like the SALT program or the Dearborn Transitional Program, that's really going to give you that extra support that you need, and to get comfortable sort of having those conversations with other people, aside from caregivers and parents who you may be more comfortable having those conversations with, but definitely accessing all of the things that are on campus that can sort of help vault. I know for our program as well, we have a release process where we can also be communicating with parents. So using different programs where, you know, maybe it's not as easy for you in the moment to be talking with parents and giving them updates, but like your college coach through our program can also be doing that, and keeping the parents in the loop, because it can be hard to sort of separate right away, especially.
And for parents, that transition is hard and anxiety provoking. I want to acknowledge that what we're talking about right now is, this is the playing field. I mean, it's our job here to inform you about what changes are coming down the road, and that there are many amazing programs out there that understand that transition and support it carefully and thoughtfully, and that's fantastic. That doesn't remediate the worry or the anxiety. I can, as a parent myself, you know, that anxiety, but there are ways as we learn to talk about what this transition can look like, the concerns you have, and hopefully with strong communication with your student. Sometimes that can be a fraught process as well, as students maybe concern themselves. And so the support that you can get from your school, from the college perhaps, and others can help smooth that a little bit. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah, who's that? Oh, Suzanne. Yes,
This is
hello.
Suzanne, Dr. Jones. Yes, I think sometimes we have to prepare the students the same way we prepare the parents, with the understanding that they are going to get to this stage and they will not be as involved. And sometimes I think once we have that openness and that frank conversation and say, well, you know, when they get to college, we won't be able to speak to you the way we did, because now, you know, they're going to advocate for themselves. And I think sometimes parents just feel left out without having that conversation. They pay bills.
Oops, you just muted Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones,
I think
you muted again. It's muted again.
I just think that we just need to do a better job in really transitioning our parents the same way we do our students.
I couldn't agree with you more, and acknowledging that things will change, and that your students, and it will look a wide range of different ways for your student. But it is time to support that transition. Absolutely. That's the words well spoken. Thank you, Dr. Jones. Mari, are there other questions out there?
I think we don't have any current questions. There is one. I was wondering if there was a type of notebook, an app, a backpack, or something that helps make things a little easier. Like, if there are any like special tips that people have, if they want to, if there's something, a tool that you all like to use, that would be great to hear. If there's something that's really made a difference.
You know, that's such a great question, Mari. I love that. And I know my program created a college readiness checklist for students with vision impairment looking to attend college to use in middle school to begin planning and thinking through self-advocacy skills and the skills that we're all talking about today, because they're all the same needs, right? Other panelists, do you have other suggestions that may help? I'm hearing nothing.
Okay.
One other book I might suggest to families that they may have encountered already, given their engagement with schools for children, but would be Smart But Scattered. Literature that helps unpack the wide range of experiences that students have and the challenges they have, and the profile of families, parents who are trying to support students who might be very different from them, and accepting that the range of different experiences that we have as we do this next big step, it's going to look different for each one of us. That can demystify some of these differences and perhaps open up conversation. That's been a help for a lot of families I've worked with. By Peg Dawson and Richard Ware. Marvelous. Thank you for putting that in the chat. Other comments?
I think we're ready to wrap up, right? Sorry. But
no.
It's 3:54, and I know we have a hard stop in exactly 1 minute here. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody. Our panelists are fabulous today. Thank you all so much. It's great to hear from you and to hear your expertise. Thank you, Leslie, for hosting today. We are very appreciative of that. If you haven't dropped into the showcase, I highly recommend that. The link is on the screen, and you can also find it on our website where you can go directly. Just go to differentchoices.org and you can find the showcase link right there. And we will be sending you a survey in a little bit, and would love to have your feedback on how we can improve the whole Different Choices Fair for the future. But thank you all so much, and we will look forward to hearing from you soon.